The one thing that I find consistent in all of these cultures is how easy it is to make people happy. All you have to do is be hungry and eat their food and enjoy it. We call the process, as I say, officially nonviolent communication, but we change that name in different places for political and other reasons. Sometimes we call it compassionate communication. Sometimes we call it respectful communication. And for teaching purposes and for fun, I like to call it giraffe language, for reasons I'll make clear as we go along. I was having dinner with the family of a young man that I was training to give our training. And he was from the village of Jenin in what's now the Palestinian Authority. And he wanted me very much to meet his family. And it was not an easy thing to arrange when he wanted to do this, because for me, to get there required a lot of security precautions. I had to sit in the back seat of a car looking down so people couldn't see who I was and so forth. So he went to a lot of trouble so I could have dinner with his family. Anyway, I'm sitting in the living room talking to his father, who was a retired school teacher. And the father brought out a bag of coins. He had a box of coins. Because when he gardens, it's like a history lesson, because the number of different people who have inhabited this region over the centuries is quite varied. So when he gardens, he'll find coins from centuries past. So there'll be some from the Greek, when the Greeks were there, the Romans, and so forth. So I looked through this, and I was astonished he could get so many coins out of his garden. It was amazing, amazing. And then my eye came upon this one. Let's see, this coin. And he laughed and he said, "You have a very good eye." He said, "That's the oldest coin in my collection. This is from the day when this was under Arab control. And that coin," he said, "is over 1,000 years old." Wow, I've never seen a coin that old. I run through money quicker than that. Wow, I couldn't. I'm sure my eyes glowed. And so I go to put it back in the box. He closes the box and "It's yours." He had joy in his eyes. You could just see. He saw the joy in my eyes. I had never seen a coin like that. And then, I said, "I can't. That's too valuable. Please, no. No, it's yours, you see." But human beings, by nature, experience most joy at other people's joy. And that's wonderful, because I think the survival of our species is safe, given that that's what I'm convinced that's true. That there's nothing that we human beings like more than joy at other people's joy. So this man saw the joy in my eyes with this coin, and right away my having it brought joy in his eyes, you see. If I eat his food and enjoy it, it brings joy to him. This is our nature. What happens to people who get joy at other people's joy that so often we seem to enjoy other people's misery? How does this happen? How does it happen that people by nature who like more than anything else enriching the lives of other people, how is it so often then we do other things that create pain for one another, that isn't fun for anybody? Why would we do that? And that question has been on my mind most of my life. And it led to the work that I do, because what I found in answer to this question of how is it that people who enjoy more than anything else bringing joy to other people so often don't do that and do just the opposite. Even within their families, they will say things purposely to hurt their children, to make them feel bad, to make them feel guilty, to make them be ashamed of themselves. How can that be? How can it be that people who enjoy other people's joy would say things to make their children feel bad. Their husbands and wives. Why so often do the pain in families? The enormous violence between different cultures and tribes and states and so forth. So that's been on my mind. Ever since those days when we moved to Detroit, it's been on my mind. When I found that it could not be safe to walk outside because of one's skin color, one's name. So how can this be when human beings, more than anything in the world, enjoy other people's joy? So it was those questions that led me to an interest in language and communication. Because what I found is that there are ways that if human beings are trained to think and communicate in these ways, they lose connection with their compassionate nature and can do the horriblest things to people. And can you imagine my dismay when I found out that this tragic, violent language was the one I had been taught? How horrible. You see. So what is this language that if you teach it to people, it interrupts their natural compassion and can lead them to behave quite violently to themselves and other people? Officially, I call this language nonviolent, life-alienated communication, this language that disconnects us. Life-alienated communication, because you'll see when I outline it for you, it really cuts us off from nature, from the life that's going on in us and other people. And it puts us up in our head, analyzing people in ways that makes violence fun. You see. For teaching purposes and fun, and so I can play with puppets in public without being locked up, for teaching purposes, I call life-alienated communication jackal language. It's a language that cuts us off from our nature, so that if we have somebody is behaving in a way that isn't meeting our needs, if we were speaking a natural language and somebody's doing something that's not in harmony with our needs, we would say please in a way that makes it fun for people to give to us. We would let them see what our need is, say please, and then I'm saying nature takes over. People enjoy other people's joy. But in this language, you say please by telling other people what's wrong with them. Can you imagine such a language? Can you imagine such a suicidal thing to be taught? That when you are in need and you need something from people, that the way you let them know this is tell other people what's wrong with them? Think of what would have happened to us when we were infants if we had been speaking this language. When we were hungry in the middle of the night, we would have gotten up and said to our parents, "Parents, how could you be so insensitive? I haven't eaten in 4 hours. Get your lazy butt out of the bed and feed me." What would have happened to us? We wouldn't be here today. We would have starved. Who wants to feed somebody who's calling you names? But those of us like myself who were taught this language, that's how we've been trained to think and communicate. That when people are not doing what we would like, our needs are not being met, instead of asking for things in a way that makes it easy and natural for people to give to us, we have a splendid vocabulary for telling people what is wrong with them. Where I grew up in Detroit, I learned a dialect of jackal called street jackal. So, for example, if you're driving and somebody pulls out in front of you in traffic or drives in a way you don't like, you stick your head out the window and say something like, "Idiot!" That would be on a good day. When you were feeling full of compassion and warmth for the world. But that's still a pretty crude dialect, so I wanted to have some class and culture, so I went to the university and got a doctor's degree and professional jackal. And now I stick my head out the window. Psychopath! Isn't that nicer? So I studied people who stayed natural, who stayed compassionate, no matter what the conditions, no matter how other people are behaving. In my work now, I meet a lot of such people. But before I started to do this kind of work, I would try to find such people and study them. What makes these people stay human no matter how people around them are behaving? No, now I have the great joy. I was talking at breakfast. Everywhere I go, these are the people I'm working with. So it's my life is wonderful. I keep touring around the world with these people who stay human no matter what people around them are doing. For example, I'll be going to Rwanda in about a month and a half, and some of the people there that I work with, are people I love to study with, to see how they could maintain their humanness through what they've been through. I'll be working there with my friend Yolande, who hid under a little basin not much bigger than this table for, I think, 13 days. And while she was under there, she heard her children being killed, her husband being killed, her brother being killed. And when I met this woman and I saw how compassionate she was, out of all of that pain, her main interest now is how to use her pain in reconciliation and prevention. How can we prevent this continuing? And her biggest problem now is the people that went through similar pain with her hate her because she doesn't want vengeance. You see? So I asked her, and I ask all these people that I have the pleasure, how did you do it? How did you stay human through such experience? And they always tell me it's my parents. So their parents gave them something that helped them stay human no matter what. And it was from such people and finding what it was that helps people to do that, that I saw that there was a language quite different than the one that I was taught, that these people had, that helps them to stay human no matter what happens to them. I call this language, as I've said already today, nonviolent communication, but giraffe is the fun name I call it, and I call it giraffe because I saw that the language of the people who stay human, stay compassionate, no matter what the conditions, I saw that these people were very honest. The word honest kept coming to me when I studied how they were different. And it confused me at first because I always thought I was honest. But you see, to me, honesty, as a jackal-speaking person, was telling other people what's wrong with them. See, notice honesty of this kind comes from your head. You have a whole big computer in your head for classifying and analyzing. Right, wrong, good, bad, normal, abnormal, competent, incompetent. So, and then you think you're honest when you put names on people. Here's what you are. Here's what's wrong with you. Here's what's right with you. But the honesty of the people that I admired, it came from such a different place. It came from their heart. They revealed what was going on inside, but without using any words that ever implied wrongness of other people. What a different concept of honesty from the heart. Well, what better name for such a language than giraffe language? Because giraffes have the largest heart of any land animal. 26-pound heart. Got to pump the blood a long way to get it up to the brain. Need a big heart. And I think for us to have peace and compassion reign on this planet, or in ourselves, or in our families, or in our workplace, for compassion to reign, we have to be speaking from the heart, connected to each other at the heart, not up analyzing each other. Language, we are going back to nature, and it's much easier to program ourselves back to nature than away from it. So it's taken several centuries to train us to think in an unnatural way. So So now we're habitual at that. It's very habitual to think in jackal. But it's not natural. And Gandhi really helped me with that. Just at the time I was reluctant to practice it, because I kept saying to myself, it's not a natural way to... And then I read something he wrote, be careful of mixing up that which is natural with that which is habitual. Very often we have been programmed to think and behave in quite unnatural ways. It may take us a good deal of conscious effort to reprogram ourselves. So yeah, so when it seems hard for me and I still catch myself jackling, and I think, my God, I've been working at this 30 years, but that's a short time given how many centuries we have been trained to think in this violent way. You know,
well, in a related thing, I don't know how I feel. I was trained not to know how I feel. I do know how to describe people's behavior judgmentally. As you said, we've been trained to do that. But I was actually trained not to know how I feel.
mm-hmm.
So I cannot do the jackal, but it doesn't mean I'm honestly doing giraffe.
So you're saying it's one thing to catch the jackal and to try to stay away from it, but how do I find my feelings and needs, you see, when I've been trained not to feel? I used to have a cartoon in my office about my background teaching me not to feel. It was a picture of John Wayne, my childhood idol. See, John was not a great feeling speaker. John would go into a tavern, and he had a simple classification system. Good guys, bad guys. Good guys, kill them. Bad guys, buy them. Oh, no, excuse me. Good guys. I never was very good at that game. Always killing the wrong people. Good guys, buy them a drink. Bad guys, kill them. I mean, even as simple as it is, you see, I can't even handle that. So that was John's philosophy. See, when you think good guys, bad guys, you don't have to know how you feel. You have to know who's right, who's wrong. Because the big question, why that's so important, is because of this dangerous word deserve, you see. That's one of the most frightening concepts that human beings have ever come up with, deserve. A totally illogical concept, incidentally. If you read Walter Kaufmann's book, Without Guilt and Justice, you will see that it's a totally illogical concept to think anybody deserves anything. But that underlies this system of good guys, bad guys, and if they're bad guys, they deserve punishment, you see. Well, that game doesn't require you to know feelings. It requires you to know who is what. Now, who is the final authority of who deserves it? Of course, the top jackal. So that's how that game works. You have a top jackal who always claims to know what's right, and who's the good guys and who's the bad guys. That person has the right then to punish people who deserve it. Very frightening game.
No, it's much more sophisticated. We have laws that are made by majorities.
Yes.
So it's not always just
but in this book,
supposed to be neutral and impartial.
But in this book that I mentioned, Without Guilt and Justice, by Walter Kaufmann, who's a philosophy professor at Princeton, he's saying, yes, we've gotten more sophisticated over the years, but notice these majorities are still deciding who's right and who's wrong, and what do people deserve. So these people sit around and discuss, if it's second-degree rape for the third offense, does this person deserve 18 months or 16 months in prison? See, so that's our mentality, to think of as though this is going to really change people's behavior. So now, instead of the king deciding, we have panels and so forth. But it's still, they're operating under the same mindset. Let's think of what's right and wrong and who deserves what, rather than other ways, which we'll be talking about today. But yes, feelings are not easy to come by when we have been living in that system. So this picture I have of John Wayne, I used to have anyway in my office, it shows John with 6 arrows in him. And he's saying, it only hurts when I laugh. You see, so I learned to, as a young man growing up in the culture I grew up, to play hurt. That means you just don't listen to your feelings. They're not important. And if you want to send men off to war, you have to teach them their feelings don't matter. All that matters is obedience to the boss or the majority. And women get their own version of that. Loving women don't have feelings and needs. They take care of other people. But their needs don't matter. Their feelings don't matter. So you have to drum that into people very young. And so, yes, you don't teach people to be conscious of their feelings in such a culture. Yeah.
I think with me sometimes I'm not convinced that that it feels better to give away the coin than to keep the coin and know I have enough money for food the next day. Maybe I get confused on what really gives the greatest joy there. And I think maybe if you could talk a little bit about that. And,
for example, if I could have, it's very easy to upset that balance and make it not joyful at all. For example, if I had said to this man, "Give me that coin," I probably would not have gotten the coin. I probably could have started a war. So, in other words, we don't want to give anything to people when we're forced to do it. It takes all the joy out of it, you see. So that's why if parents want us to make the bed in our room, right? And they put it to us this way, it's your duty. There's nothing that a child would rather not do then than make the bed. It's just no joy in that at all. On the other hand, if the child sees how the parent's needs will be met, how the parent really values order, and how it just feels better to see order, and that they want support in getting that order, because it's kind of rough to get it. When the child sees that, the child enjoys making the bed. So that's one thing that can disrupt that. You see, any kind of coercion, any kind of use of punishment takes all the joy out of giving to people, or even the threat of punishment. If we think that if we don't give, we're going to have guilt games played with us, shame games played with us, it takes all the joy out of it. And then rather than give, people will actually do everything against the other person. But those aren't the only reasons why we may choose not to give. As you say, we might have two sets of needs. I might be very hungry and needing to eat. And I might get joy. It would still give me joy to give this to the other person, but I don't know how to do that and feed my body, which would also give me joy. And so, yeah, there are those conflicting situations. Incidentally, I don't think that those are ever really the cause of violence or tension. I think that when it's just that, when you might see that it would bring me joy, but you say to me, "But you know, Marshall, as much joy as I could get giving you this now, I'm also hungry, so I would enjoy." When we can communicate at that level, we will find a way to get everybody's needs met. You see?
When you first said that looking for people who communicated that way all the time, I thought they'd have to be a saint.
No. Oh, I'm very glad that you say that, because when I give this kind of introduction, I very often give that impression, so thank you. Let me reassure you, to do what I'm suggesting does not require you to be a saint. It doesn't require you to be patient. I've demonstrated you don't even have to be normal. You see. And above all, you do not have to be nice. See, I think nice people contribute to much of the violence of the world. They can just sit and be pleasant and acknowledge some people being discriminated against, but they don't raise any fuss, you see. So no. The last thing I want to do is contribute to more nice people on the world. No, what it requires you to be is conscious of what you value and willing to risk living that way. So it just requires being clear what you want. And a lot of times you're going to be in pain, and it requires you to express that pain. And it doesn't mean you have to express it in a nice way, just in an honest way. It doesn't mean that you can't use force, what I'm teaching. If people are behaving in a way that violates your values, and they're unwilling to communicate, you use force, but not to punish. See, we'll hopefully clarify in these 2 days the difference between the punitive use of force and the protective use of force. So does this ease you any, that you don't have to be
Yes.
nice? And giraffe people who have been coming out of the background that I did, where we are born-again giraffes. Because see, my premise is we were all giraffe speakers at birth. It's a natural way of communicating. It's just nature, nature's communication. Then we got educated in a jackal way, so we're coming back to really what is more natural. But in the meanwhile, we have been trained to think in a way that makes us angry a good deal of the time. Because see, I'm going to show you that we get angry because we have gone deaf to life. We're cut off from life. We seem to feel like we got a lot of life going on when we're angry because the emotions are... But in fact, when we're angry, we're disconnected from life. We are up in our head playing a game called Punitive God. We are claiming to know that somebody has done something bad, deserving of punishment. There's variation of that theme going on inside of us when we're angry. So that happens to all the giraffe-speaking people that I know that were educated first as jackal. To whatever degree, there's still that game that we were trained to play for centuries going on in us. So if our child does something that we don't like, we're angry right away because we think they're lazy, irresponsible. I've told him over and over again what's wrong with him. See, we have that kind of thinking going on when we're angry. So giraffes get angry, but they handle it different than jackal-speaking people. See, a jackal-speaking person expresses their anger this way. You make me angry. They blame other people for their anger. You deserve to be punished. So that's different than the anger of a giraffe-speaking person. A giraffe-speaking person knows that other people can never make you angry. So when a giraffe-speaking person is angry, they are aware that they are cut off from life because they are telling themselves violence-provocative thoughts. So they take a breath and transform that thinking into need-serving thinking. You say to another person, a need, a beautiful need. You express a need. I'm really lonely this evening and I have a need for some companionship. Would you be willing to sit with me and talk this evening? Okay, you see that beautiful gift one human being giving to another? And look at the reaction I get back from this other person. Just watch this. This is ugly. If you're scared of jackals, don't watch this. This is horrible. So, would you be willing to just sit and be with me, jackal, this evening? Isn't that horrible? Isn't that horrible? I give this person from my heart, and look at that reaction I get. Jackal, you don't seem happy hearing that. I'll do it. See, so what happened, you see, the reason this person didn't like what I said, it didn't get delivered. A need didn't get delivered. This person had on these ears, you know what they heard? A demand. They hear a demand. I said, I'd like. They hear, I have to. Frightening. How many jackal-speaking people hear that? Some of you have heard me tell the story of this young man in Norfolk, Virginia, a high school student. I was asked to work with high school students that this jackal school system labeled socially and emotionally maladjusted. So you know right away it's a jackal school system if they label students that way. See? So I knew I was in for a rough day because labels lead to self-fulfilling prophecies. You see, if you really think a person's mentally ill, they're going to act in a way that you're not going to enjoy. See, if you really think, if you believe a psychiatrist or psychologist when they say you have manic depressive disease, you will be depressed most of your life. You see. Because you'll think there's something wrong with you. If you think there's something wrong with you, it's going to be pretty hard to get your needs met. So you're going to be depressed. It's going to be a vicious circle, you see. So I said to this student, would you please sit down. I'd like to explain to everybody what I'd like to do today. He was screaming out the window. And I could tell just from his eyes, the Jackal Postal Delivery Service did not get my message across. It didn't make a request. I could just see in his eyes, and the fact that he didn't move. He just stared at me. I said, "Sir, could you tell me what you heard, please?" I use "sir" with people like him because he had biceps, boom, boom, with a tattoo on the bicep. I always use that as a stimulus to remind me to be polite. "Sir, would you tell me what you heard, please?" "Yeah, you said I had to come over there and sit down." The Jackal Postal Delivery Service. I make a request. He hears a demand. You see? If you say to a jackal, "I feel really disappointed that you didn't do the work that I had asked you to do." I'm talking to a child of mine, you see. Today, you said you were going to do this work. I'm disappointed that it didn't get done. The Jackal Postal Delivery Service, see, they didn't get the message. "Could you tell me what you heard me say?" "I'm bad." I didn't say that. I said a feeling. But if a person has been educated to think that if somebody you love is disappointed, you're bad, you're selfish. Yeah, so if you speak giraffe, that's why to speak giraffe, it's important that you never express yourself honestly without certain technology. See, make sure you never open up and reveal your heart in a jackal-speaking world without this technology, you see. Giraffe ears, you see, because these ears are powerful technology. They help you enjoy a jackal when the jackal freaks out. But see, if a jackal, you know, responds like this young man did, "Yeah, you said I had to come over there and sit down. Who are you to boss me around?" See, if a person reacts that way when you open up your heart, you're going to think there's something wrong with your heart. If you have these ears on, then you take things personally. You spend a good deal of your life feeling like PPPPPT. Piss poor protoplasm, poorly put together. See, that's why I like to do workshops in the United States. I can say that. But can you imagine my translators in other languages? That's all I got to do is say that in Rwanda to my poor French-speaking. You see your translator go gray in front of you when you say stupid things like that.
Could you please give me some behavior, some self-talk, some physical behavior, like I heard you say, you take a breath. What else do you say? What do you say to yourself?
What's the jackal show that's creating my pain?
Okay, you say that. What is the
I
jackal?
look for the jackal show that's creating my pain. I know that any time I'm feeling four feelings, there's a jackal show in my head, in my consciousness. It's often not very clear to me, though, because my jackal speaks so rapidly, and they have been in there so long, that very often it looks to me like it's what the other person did. Like the young man that I'm now, he's not a young man anymore, he's an adult that I have the pleasure to be with these 2 days, my son, my youngest son. I can recall, for example, I would go to the bathroom in the morning and there would be a hair in the sink, the color of his, right? And I would be furious, furious. Can you imagine a little hair could make a grown man angry? I would think that made me angry. That, damn it, his hair's in the sink again, you see? Now, a hair cannot make a person angry. But being a jackal-speaking person, I would think that. I would think that makes me angry. I've told him time and again to wash the sink out after he's been using it. I would think that the fact that he didn't clean the sink made me angry. Everybody with me? Have you ever thought such crazy thoughts that a hair could make you angry? Now, come on. You couldn't have ever been that demented. Here, I thought I was the only one. This is a relief, you see. I thought I was the only one that could get angry made by a hair, you see. Well, obviously, you see, now I've learned that it's never what other people do that make me angry. So I say to myself, what's the jackal show going on in my head that's making me angry? And if I take a deep breath, oh, I have a splendid jackal show going on. I'm telling myself, this kid never listens to anybody. He thinks only of himself. I've told him over and over again that he should. Now there, you'll always have a should in your consciousness if you're angry, either explicitly or implicitly. This violence provocative concept of should is in your thinking when you're angry. So if you just say, what's the jackal show, you'll see a should in there before long.
Okay, the next question then is what do you do with the emotion, your feelings, while you're looking at the jackal?
You enjoy them. You enjoy it. Oh, I'm so angry at this kid, I could kill him. Oh, you enjoy it, because the worst thing you could do is jackal yourself for being angry. And say, I should be nice. See, that's what you're taught in the jackal world. You shouldn't get angry. Anger isn't nice. Nice people don't get angry, especially about a hair in the sink. So you're made to feel guilty for being angry. So if you really want to make your life miserable and you want to spend a good deal of your life being depressed, then you tell yourself you shouldn't be angry. In fact, to whatever degree you have the word should in your consciousness, you'll spend a good deal of your life being both angry and depressed. Should gives you the blessings of both. You see, should directed outward makes you angry. Should directed inward makes you depressed. Then the next step, what need of mine is being expressed through the jackal show? Because giraffes are conscious that all judgments of other people are tragic expressions of our needs.
What need of mine?
Yes.
Is being met through
Is not being met. No,
jackal?
is not being
Okay.
met. That is being expressed right now by jackal.
Mm-hmm.
See, remember I showed you the trick that could be played on a child who, when they're hungry, instead of saying, I'm hungry and I need to eat, would say, how could you be so insensitive? So what is the need behind that? I have a need for food. An infant is too smart to say you're insensitive. An infant expresses a language that calls attention to needs. You see? So that
But I
stimulates.
have to handle those needs at that time, Marcia, because if I'm with the group of jackals, they're not going to care what my needs
But
are.
until you're connected to your needs, what's your chance of getting your need met from anybody?
Yeah, I've got to connect with them.
You have to connect with it before you're very likely to get it met. So you have to at least use the judgment as a window to look for find the need behind the judgment. You see. So all judgments implying wrongness of others are tragic expressions of our own needs. That's a theme that we will come back to again and again. So when other people are making judgments of us, we don't hear it. We ask ourselves, what is the need of this person when they are calling us this name? We don't hear the name. Yes.
So earlier I heard you say when you're feeling poor feelings.
Yes.
And I heard you talk about anger.
Anger
guilt.
tells me that I have these ears on outward. I am playing punitive God and judging others as wrong in a way that is deserving of blame and punishment. Variations on that theme, anger. When I flip these ears on the other way and now start judging myself, I'm likely to be feeling shame, guilt, depression. So giraffes love to feel shame, guilt, and depression because we use those feelings as an alarm clock to wake up to the consciousness that right at the moment we are dehumanizing ourselves with our thinking. We are turning ourselves into a thing. And those are precious feelings. They tell us that. We are turning ourselves into a thing. If you're going to turn yourself into a thing, you don't want to be happy. You don't want to enjoy that. You have to know how to pull a jackal by the ears so that they receive the giraffe message and not the jackal message. For example, that young man over by the window, remember, I said, I'd like you all to come on over and sit down. I'd like to tell you who I am and what I'd like to do today. That's what I said. And then he said, you said we had to come over there and sit down. Okay, now here's the pulling by the ears. I said, sir, could you tell me how I could have let you know what I was wanting so it wouldn't sound like an order? And he said, huh? Huh? Really, it's a radical difference for somebody raised in a jackal world to hear somebody in a position of authority expressing a human request and not a demand. It's an astonishing paradigm shift, you see. So I don't expect one pull of the ears to get there. He says, huh? So I try other words. I said, how could I let you know what my needs are without it sounding like I'm bossing you around? I don't know. I said, just what's happening to you and me right now, in fact, is what I really wanted to talk a good deal of the day about. Because I think that we human beings can enjoy each other a lot more if we just say what we want without bossing each other around. So I need you to tell me, what do you need from me that you trust that when I say what I need, that I value your needs equal to my own? And somehow he got it that time. I could see it in his eyes. Just even the glimmer that I meant that. That just because I say what my needs are, that doesn't mean I don't care what he needs. He got it. He came over and sat down. So, you see, that's pulling by the ears. Now, it's not always that simple. If I go to pull a jackal by the ears, see, let me go over those moves real slowly, how you do it. You do it this way. Watch. Get that? See, excuse me. Could you tell me what you heard me say? You see, but now, he did it. Notice when I said, would you tell me what you heard me say? And he said, yeah, you said I had to come over there and sit down. But sometimes when people, because of the jackal ears, have heard our message in a pain-creating way, they're in too much pain to allow us to pull them by the ears. Now we have to do some emergency first aid before we can pull them by the ears. And here's what that would have looked like. If I say, would you tell me what you heard me say? I'm sick and damn tired of people telling me what to do, man. You can shove it up your... Okay, well, he's now hearing still another demand. And if he's been having demands made on him at home and at other places and punished, and he's in too much pain from that now. Even though I didn't make a demand, he's still in pain right now. So now I'm going to have to do the part of giraffe that's very important, empathy. Empathy means I'm going to have to give him some empathy for his pain before I can continue pulling him by the ears. So I say to you, so you're fed up with, doing things because other people tell you to do it, and you want to do things when you choose to do it. You're damn right. You're damn right. You're not God. You have no right coming in this classroom and telling me what I have to do. You're fed up with that. You want to do things when you choose to do it and not when you're made to do it. Yeah. Now maybe I can pull them by the ears. Could you tell me what I could have done to let you know my needs without it sounding like I was bossing you? So, see, maybe he can only allow me to pull him by the ears after I've cleaned up the mess created by his jackal ears. We can almost guarantee that almost any time we express a feeling in a jackal world, somebody might hear it as an attack, criticism. So here we're working so hard to express our feelings, we do it, they still hear the old message. So we got to know how to clean that mess up. Elaine and Marion know a woman named Ruth Bebermeyer who came to my trainings in St. Louis and one day called me on the phone sounding in great pain, I thought. She said, can I see you right away? So, sure, I said, come in. So I was surprised to see her carrying a guitar. And she said, I've been writing music since I've been coming to your training, and I've been wanting to do it for you, but didn't have the courage. So I just woke up today and said, if I didn't do it today, I know I'd never do it. So then I understood the urgency in her voice. It was fear about it. So she sang a song, which I'm going to do for you, called Given To. That in a few words really said what it took me a half an hour to say at the beginning of the day about compassion being the core of things. And she really beautifully in this song captures the quality of giving that I'm interested in promoting through this language. So when she finished, I said, gosh, I didn't know you wrote music. She said, I never did until I started coming to your trainings. And then sometimes I just wake up at 2 in the morning and things that have been going inside of me as a result came out. So I invited her to come and sing that song to a group that I was doing the next weekend in St. Louis. And she did, and I saw how people responded to her music, how it helped them assimilate things at a different level. So since I was living in St. Louis at the time and wasn't traveling anywhere near like I was now, most of my training was done there, and she would come. I invited her to come and sing her music, and every time she did, she would get stimulated and write more music. And after this went on several months, she said to me one day, you know, Marshall, I'm getting depressed on my regular job because I so much more enjoy writing music and doing it in your workshops. It just makes my regular job seem terrible. I said, what's the problem? Quit your job and come to work with me. And she said, oh, I can't. And then, oh boy, my jackal started to howl because can't is primitive jackal, you see. And I said to her, what, can't? After all these workshops, you still think can't? And she said, oh, but I'm not a psychologist. Oh, my jackal got upset with that. I said, you're thinking of what you are now, not what you want. So she quit her job the next day and came to work with me the next 13 years. So 2 years after she joined me, I said to her one day, you know, I really miss not having you when I travel because that music adds a lot. And she said, why don't you get a guitar and learn how to sing? I said, I can't. And I could see in her eyes the stuff she was going to give me. And I said, now wait a minute. Now this is, I'm not a singer. She says, now you're telling me what you are. I said, now wait a minute. That crap can go too far. This is different. This is different. And this is a true story, I had a 3rd grade music teacher that told me and 2 boys, bring comic books, don't sing. And I had jackal ears at the time. Really. I allowed this person's judgment of me to determine what I had, what I was. So for the next 30 years, I never sang. Not one song. Even in a group, I kept these ears on. I had such shame at my voice that I wouldn't allow myself to sing for 30 years, you see. Well, that day, right after we had that conversation, I went out and bought this guitar, you see.
I've been taking this song around to Pendle Hill and other places, and people say to me, well, we really like this song and we'd like to learn it, but we have no idea what the tune is when we finish listening to you sing it. And then when they sing it back, it isn't what I want to hear. It doesn't sound like the tune I thought I gave them. So I would like to sing it with you.
Good, that'll be fun. Anybody else, any of the others would know, I'd be very happy to have you sing it with me. Yeah, I sang a song recently, you know, where I live in Switzerland, they speak Swiss German. It's not to be confused with High German. Yeah, it's quite different. So I sang a song for them in Swiss German, their language, and a woman afterwards said, what language was that? That's a humbling experience for my linguistic abilities. Oh, it still sounds good. I never feel more given to than when you take from me. When you understand the joy I feel giving to you. And you know my giving isn't done to put you in my debt, but because I want to live the love I feel for you. To receive with grace may be the greatest giving. There's no way that I can separate the two. When you give to me, I give you my receiving. And when you take from me, I feel so given to. So I've listed on the board the basic mechanics of giraffe, for those of you who've not been with me before. And you see that it basically involves expressing ourselves in a certain way and receiving other people's messages in a certain way. And it basically involves an exchange of the 4 pieces of information that you see. So we need to know how to express these 4 things and to receive them, and to keep that flow of communication going. And my promise to you is that when you can connect at the heart level, you can get the other person to clearly feel what you are feeling and needing, and you see what that person is feeling and needing. My promise is everybody's needs can get met. We live in a world of great abundance. There's more than enough resources for everybody's needs to get met. And we will get those needs met if we have a giraffe dance. That's the dance, the exchange of information that allows us to connect at this level, at the heart level, to see each other's feelings and needs. And that we keep out of there pollutants. See, if pollutants get in there, then this natural process doesn't work. And what are the pollutants? The 2 pollutants that bog down compassion, we've talked about already today: criticism. Anything that sounds like somebody has done something wrong is like sand in the gears, water in the gas tank. Anything that either party says that sounds like a criticism, attack, insult, diagnosis, put down, analysis, anything like that blocks the natural process of compassion. And the second thing that blocks the beauty of humans interacting in a way that that song was expressing is demand. And demand, by that I mean presenting things to other people in a way that they believe if they don't do it, you will make them wish they had. If people feel in any way that we think we know what's best for them and that we are prepared to use coercive means to get it, that their needs are not as important to us as our own needs. If they feel that, that's a demand. So that's why a parent came back to me the second day of the workshop. She said, I went home and tried it last night. It didn't work. I said, let's learn from it. What happened? And she said, I went home and I noticed that my son did not do some work that he said he was going to do. See, she was making an observation. And that's a clear observation. He didn't do something that he said he was going to do. She was speaking good giraffe to him when she said to him, when I see that you didn't do what you said. See, she didn't say to him, when I see that you can't be trusted. Now that would be a diagnosis. She didn't confuse diagnosis with observation. She was very specific. When I come home and see that you didn't do what you said, I feel disappointed. I need to be able to trust that people are going to do what they say. So I would be great. I would like it if you would be willing to go in there and do it right now. So she expressed it. I said, what's the problem? She said, you didn't do it. Yeah, then what did you do? She said, I told him he couldn't go through life being lazy and irresponsible. I said, well, I see that. I'm glad we have a second day because I can see that didn't make a lot clear to you. She said, like what? I said, well, first of all, the other half of the process, when he didn't do it, you forgot to empathize with his not doing it. What was he feeling and needing when he didn't do it? Oh yeah, she said, I didn't do that. And then I said, but even more basic, it sounds like you think the purpose of this process is to get other people to do what you want. Well, she said, isn't it? No, you came to the wrong workshop. If your objective is to get people to do what you want, you need to go to a jackal workshop and learn how to use behavior modification, use punishment and reward, if that's your objective. You see, no, it's never our objective, because giraffes know that anything you get through the use of punishment and reward, you'll pay for. You see, you will pay for anything you get that's done for you out of reward or punishment motivation. No, but if you want people to do what you want, and take a behavior modification course. The objective of giraffe is to connect with other people in a way that allows everybody's needs to get met. See, that's a hard objective for jackal-speaking people to get clear, because the first thing that she said then is, so what you're saying is then I have to give up all of my values as a parent in order to speak giraffe. See, poor jackals, they can only think of win-lose games, you see, so that she can only think that now if she gives up the objective of getting the other person to do what she wants, that means giving up her needs. No, I said, in giraffe, you never give up your needs or values. You don't give in or give up. You have a certain trust in an energy that it works through people. An energy works through people such that if we connect with each other in a certain way, that energy will see to it that everybody's needs get met. See, this has been said by every one of the basic faith claims throughout the planet about how this energy works through people when we connect in a certain way. You know, Christian tradition says, when two or more are gathered in my name, there I am also. So when you connect in a certain way, there I am also. You can see the same thing expressed in all of the basic faith claims. When we connect in a certain way, miracles happen. I was working with 2 tribes in Nigeria. And these tribes, the year before I had been there was 400 people in the village. The day I was there, 300. 100 people killed in 1 year, 1/4 the population of this village, trying to resolve a conflict about how many places in the marketplace each tribe, one tribe a Christian tribe, the other a Muslim tribe, would have to display their wares, you see. Both sides, when my colleague, Sami Idirika, had gone to both chiefs and asked them to kind of meet with me when I came to Nigeria to see if we could resolve this conflict in some way other than violence. They said what most people do in families and in tribes. Oh, we can't talk to this other person, you know, it's no use communicating. We just have a conflict in our needs. The only way the language these people know is violence. Anyway, by his speaking giraffe, he got both sides to send their chiefs to this day with me. So here I am, and he said to me, my colleague warned me, he said, Marshal, feelings may get pretty high today. There's going to be 3 people in that group that know that their child was killed by somebody in the room. So be prepared, you see. So now I'm sitting in the middle, each side, chiefs on both sides, and I said, I would like to hear what needs of yours are not getting met, and what you would like from the other side in relationship to that. See, because I know that when I can connect these 2 tribes, they'll find a way to get everybody's needs met. No need for violence. I have no doubt about that. I also could pretty much guess that it's not going to be easy for them to answer that question, because in jackal thinking areas, people do not know what they are feeling, needing, or requesting. They just know what's wrong with the other side. So the answer I got back to what are you needing and requesting, one of the Christian chief jumps to his feet and screams across the table, "You people are murderers!" Now, do you think that stimulated compassion on the part of the other people? Do you think that made them want to be less murderous to this tribe? See, labels lead to self-fulfilling prophecy. So he was trying to answer my question. Remember, I've said twice already today, all judgments are tragic expressions of unmet needs. So anywhere there's violence, you can just about bet that if you ask people what their needs are, their first reaction is going to be violent judgments toward the other. I was in Toronto, Canada, between a husband and wife who were beating each other, physically beating each other. I asked them the same question. What are you both needing that you're not getting? And what is your request of the other person? And the husband looks over at the wife and says, "You are totally insensitive to my needs." And she says, "That's unfair." See? How can you get to anything but violence when people, the only language they have for trying to make their needs known sounds to other people like an attack? So my job as a mediator in such situations, and I know that a few of you are very interested in the subject of mediation, so I'll outline. You see, my job as a mediator is basically two jobs. Translation of jackal into giraffe, see, which requires this technology. I have to have these ears. Because now when this person says murderer, with these ears I can hear this. See, I can hear this. And these screen out any judgments, so I cannot hear any judgments of others with these ears on. All I can hear are feelings, needs, requests. That's all I can hear. It's a wonderful invention, see. So, but I can't always hear the right feelings, needs. So that's why I have to put it in a question. So I said to the chief, when things calm down, because of course as soon as he says that, chief number 2 jumps to his feet and screams back, "You people have been dominating us for 80 years, we're not going to tolerate it!" So, you see, judgment begets judgment. Violence begets violence. So, I have to calm things down, hold it, excuse me, please, 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 please. Fortunately, I had a translator who knew how to say, "Excuse me," very well. He said, "Stop, stop." I didn't speak the language of these tribes. They speak Hausa. I speak no Hausa. So, anyway, I said to the chief who says, "Murderers," I said, "Chief, so you are frightened of any violence being used to resolve issues. And if I hear you correctly, you have a need that no matter what the conflict is, it be resolved some way other than violence. Is that what your need is?" "That's exactly what I'm saying." Well, he didn't say exactly that. He said something quite different. He said, "These people are murderers." So, you see, that's one of my jobs as a mediator. I don't take sides. I don't even worry too much about how to solve the problem, because I find that when people get connected at this level, the problem solves itself. And this is probably the #1 difference between our approach to mediation and how some people are trained to mediate. Some people who are mediating spend almost all of their studies trying to find what both sides can agree to. For example, I was in Austria not long ago working with some professional mediators, and one of the mediators said, "Dr. Rosenburg, before you go into an area like Nigeria and so forth, how many months do you study the political situation?" I said, "To tell you the truth, I often don't know what's going on until I get in the room, because I don't feel I have to know much about it. I find most issues that drive nations to war, millions of people are killed, most 6-year-olds, I'm convinced, could solve the conflict. Most 6-year-olds, if you knew what everybody was needing, it's not going to be that hard. But now, obviously, message sent doesn't mean a message is received because of that damn jackal postal delivery service. So, I want to be sure that the other side needs. So that skill I told you about earlier, pulling jackals by the ears, That's the second skill I have to have as a mediator. I have to now pull each side by the ears to make sure they get the giraffe message and not the old jackal message. So I said, would one of the chiefs over on this side of the table be willing to tell me what chief number one just said? They're liars! You can't believe a thing they say! Who's liars? Excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. I'm going to give you a chance to react later, but could you first tell me what he said his feelings and needs were? I don't know. Let me tell you what I heard him. I heard him saying he's scared of using violence for any conflict, to resolve any conflict. Then why did he kill my child? We'll deal with that next. Before you, can you at least repeat back what he said? Say it again. I hear him saying that he feels frightened. He has a need to be sure that no matter what conflicts are resolved, that they will be resolved in some way other than violence. I had to repeat it about 4 times. We all know how hard it is to communicate. We've probably all played the game telephone. You ever play that at a party where you have a simple message that the dog is black, and you say that to the person next to you. By the time it gets 5 or 6 down the line, it's a totally, monkeys eat cheese or something. So it's not easy to communicate, but especially when there's emotions involved, and it's more than the emotions, prejudicial thinking, classifications, you see. Classifications, judgments. When that gets in there, it blocks us from seeing the humanness of the other person. We are so trained to seeing people as conforming to our fixed images of them. It's hard to give up those fixed images. So for 80 years, these two tribes have been at war. They each had fixed images of each other. So I had to do some ear pulling before I could just get this person to say back. So he's saying he's scared. There's a need to have conflicts resolved without violence. Thank you, Chief, for hearing that. Now, I'd like to hear your feelings and needs. I told you before, these people have been trying to dominate us, and we're not going to tolerate it. Who's been trying? Hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it. So now, once again, I put on my ears and I translate that into feelings and needs. See, what is he needing when he says they have been trying to dominate us? So I said, Chief, you feel annoyed, if I'm hearing you correctly, because you have a need for equality. Of course! So that's your need that isn't getting met. That's right! Chief, what could you tell me back? What do you mean? That's not true! Excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me, excuse me. See, pulling by the ears. And now I get this chief to hear the other side's needs. In about 20 more minutes, a chief that hadn't said anything, who was sitting next to me, scared the devil out of me because he jumped up. He jumped to his feet and he says, not at the other tribe, but he says to me, and very often, since I don't sometimes get as much cultural information as I might like, I say things that steps on toes and so forth. So I thought for sure, oh my goodness, what did I forget? Because Sammy had told me a few things like this on the drive there. Now, got to be sensitive to this. So I said, now what did I forget? Waiting eagerly for my translator to tell me what faux pas I have made. But I love the message. I loved it. The chief said, we cannot learn this in one day. And if we can speak this way, we don't have to kill each other.
Wow.
So here's a man from quite a different culture than the one that I live in, but in about 2 hours could see that if we can speak this way, we don't have to kill each other. It's absolutely unnecessary.
But you ask people, what are your needs?
Yes, but notice, I didn't ask him, I didn't say, what are you needing? I guessed. That's what you do with these ears, you see. And that gets people in touch with it. So I'm focusing their attention here. See, with these ears on, I'm too smart to ever hear anything that comes out of a jackal's head. Incidentally, if you can learn not to hear what a jackal thinks, you'll live long. See, what does it do to us every time we hear somebody say, that was a stupid thing for you to do?
Takes a little piece of us away.
It takes a piece of us away. And if I say to myself when I make an error, that was a stupid thing to do. So there's a lot of studies coming out lately to show just what effect jackal ears have on our heart. Terrible. Those are not natural feelings. Those are punitive feelings, you see. So, no, this person doesn't know what his needs are. He's never been taught to think of his needs. He's been taught to judge people. So, but I know that at the root of those judgments is a need. I know that, and it's not hard to guess these once you practice, because all human beings have the same needs. So even though I am in Africa, northern Nigeria, quite different cultural background, I have the same needs. So what needs of mine would I be expressing if I was judging somebody as a murderer? So I've practiced that, so I have a guess about what the need might be. And in that way I help the person to find it. But if I just say, what are you needing? I'm not likely to get there as quickly as if I help the person by guessing.
And how do you frame the question to them?
Are you feeling and needing? Are you feeling scared?
No. How do you get it going? What do you first say to them?
Well, the very first thing I say is I say to them, I'd like to explain my role. My role today is going to be, I'm going to translate every jackal statement into giraffe and pull jackals by the ears until they hear the other person. But I clean that up a bit. I don't use jargon. And so instead of saying I'm going to translate jackal into giraffe, I say my role today as a mediator will be if I hear you expressing something that I think is going to get in the way of you getting your needs met, I'll reformulate it. But I'm not going to distort your message. I'll always check with you to make sure that what I'm translating you feel is a better representation of what you want to say. So I explain ahead of time that that's my role. I'm a translator of messages about needs that I think are not likely to get through. And then I say my other role will be to make sure the message sent is message received. So I'll do my best to make sure that we are hearing what the other side is saying. So those are my two roles. So that was the first thing I said. I skipped that in my story. So now, the very first question I said is, now, I really believe that if we can keep our conversation at the level of feelings, needs, and requests, I'm confident we can resolve this to everybody's satisfaction. So to get started at that, I would like either side who wants to start to tell me what your needs are, what your feelings are, what needs are not getting met, and how do you feel about that. Let's start with that to begin with. Even though, as I say, if people are inviting me to mediate, I can almost guarantee they don't know how to answer those questions. The first thing I'm going to hear is judgment. And I used to do couples weekends when I was living in St. Louis. And at the beginning of these workshops, I would identify the couple that had the longest standing conflict that couldn't be resolved and predict that we would resolve the conflict within 20 minutes. Within 20 minutes after both sides could tell me what the other side was feeling and needing in this conflict. So, first thing we do is we identify the couple the longest conflict. Couple we identified once, married 39 years. Conflict about money. Wife says to me, Marshall, you're going to lose your prediction here, I'll tell you that. We communicate quite well. We have a very good marriage. We just have an unresolvable conflict. We have different needs about money. I said, well, I've been wrong before, but remember what I said. If the point at which you can both tell me what the other side is needing, I'll bet you we can resolve it within 20 minutes. She says, Marshall, when you've been married to somebody 39 years, you know what he needs. Okay, what does he need? He doesn't want me to spend any money. Now, first of all, that's not what I would call a need. If it was accurate, it would be a request, not a need. But it's not a need. Needs contain no reference to specific people or action. Needs are universal. Every human being has the same needs. See? So it was clear that I hadn't made clear to her what a need even was.
Could you repeat what you just said?
Yes, that needs contain no reference to specific people or actions. See, we don't have a need for guns. We have a need for protection, to be protected, to be safe. And in some cultures, they believe that the strategy for meeting the need is to get a gun. That's why in this state, 50% of the people have weapons. Now, even though the chances are, the statistics show that a member of their family is much more likely, 3 times as likely to be killed by that gun, as that gun is going to help them protect themselves against somebody else. Still, half the families in Texas have guns. Anyway, but the point is that you don't have a need for a gun, but everybody has the same need to protect themselves, you see. So I never say to people when I'm working in cultures that are using guns as violence, I never say, to study with me, you have to give up your gun. I say, I'll bet you I can show you a better way of meeting your needs. Keep the gun until I can do it. Don't give up the gun until I show you a better way of meeting the need. I never say to somebody, I want you to stop drinking or stop taking drugs. Those are strategies that are meeting needs. I say, I'll bet you I can show you a better way of meeting your needs than taking drugs or drinking. Until I do, drink. You're meeting your need. No, I drink because I'm an alcoholic. Oh, that's what they've told you. That's a jackal way of. You think there is such a thing as an alcoholic? Yes, yes, the doctor said, yes, yes, yes. As long as you think that way, you will drink. You see. You ask him, why do you drink? I'm an alcoholic. Well, why don't you talk to people at parties? I'm shy. It's static thinking. So needs contain no reference to specific actions. So when she says, he's saying that he doesn't want me to spend any money, he said back immediately, that's ridiculous. So she hadn't even understood his strategy. That wasn't even accurate. You see. So I said, well, apparently he doesn't agree. At first, that isn't what I would call a need. And he doesn't even agree that that's an accurate statement, that he doesn't want you to spend money. Now, this is after 39 years of communication, you see. And I said, what are his needs? And then I gave her a couple-minute explanation of what I meant by needs and so forth, to differentiate them from requests. What are his needs? She said, well, Marshall, let me explain his needs to you. You see, he's just like his own father. I said, stop, 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 stop. Every word of analysis you give me, that's psychoanalytic jackal, explaining why people do things with reference to what happened to them in the past. That kind of intellectual understanding, even if it's accurate, is destructive, because it gets in the way of empathy. See? It keeps us from seeing what's alive in that person right now, which is feelings and needs. That's what we need to have our attention on. So what are his feelings and needs? She couldn't answer that question. So I said to him, can you help? What are your needs in this situation? He said, Marshall, let me explain something to you. She is a wonderful mother. She is a wonderful wife, but totally irresponsible when it comes to spending money. I said, now I can see why it has taken 39 years and you can't solve it. I just asked you for what your needs are, and you just told me a diagnosis of her. So I had to then put on my ears and help both sides hear each other's needs. First to get them expressed, identified and expressed, and then to pull the jackal by the ears to hear it. When we got there, it didn't take 20 minutes to solve the conflict. You see. Now, but it took 2 hours. 2 hours to cut through all the analysis, because each time I would try to get them to focus just on what their needs are. They want to tell me about what happened in the past to justify their diagnosis. I had to keep stopping. Excuse me, that's not what I'm asking. That's not what I'm asking. What do you... So that's why it took us 2 hours to get both sides clear about their needs and to have the other person hear it. Then it didn't take 20 minutes. Every bit of talk about what happened in the past is going to make it harder. And that's why when I train psychotherapists, I help them to see that every bit that the other person's talking about what happens to them in the past, even though you've been trained to encourage them to talk about the past, I think the time could be used much more powerfully if we get clear what feelings are alive in them still in relationship to that. What are their needs that are still not being met? That's alive now. The past is dead. See, giraffe requires living in the present, because these are what am I presently feeling and needing and requesting. The only thing that relates to the past, you might make an observation about what somebody did in the past, but that's about 2% of the message. You want the message to focus on the life that's alive right now, what's in this heart, you see. That's where the power is to resolve differences. The purpose of this of interrupting people who are talking about the past is not to take the conversation away from them. Interrupt, in a sense. It's to bring the conversation to life in a way that will get this person what they're trying to get. You see. You see, some people, if I were to label them in a jackal way, I would label them Babylonians. They belong to an organization called On and On Anonymous. On and On Anonymous. They talk forever about things, and I assume you all know how to deal with that situation. You wait for them to breathe, and then quick say, "Oh, excuse me, I just remembered my house is on fire," and you're out of there, right? Now, that's one way to handle it. But there's another way that I think would be better for both sides, and that is, you see, what people don't realize is that talking about what happened is not going to meet their present needs. But they're not aware of their present needs. They've got a need, or they wouldn't be talking about it. So they're talking about something that could have happened 20 years ago. Like I had, and I suspect each of you has a member of Babylonian in your family. In my case, it was a poor aunt who for 37 years, really, was telling the same story. And, you know, as soon as she would come toward the house, everybody would try to hide under the bed. I mean, after so many times, you can't stand hearing the story again, right? Now, why was she telling that story 37 years? Because she was carrying pain within herself for those 37 years that she was needing to do something about. But she didn't know how to identify the pain which was present. It was still with her, still alive in her. So instead, she talked about this dead thing that had happened. But that was the only way she knew of trying to deal with the pain inside. I wish then I had known giraffe ears, because I would have known how to interrupt her, which would be to interrupt, to get her focused on what is her present feeling and need in telling the story. Now, I think what you will find, people will feel more understood if you do that than if you just politely let them talk. And then you can use your time in a much more effective way. So I don't have to feel the trust. I just have to do what I can do to let that energy work. And all of a sudden, miracles start to happen when we finally got people connected enough at that level to see the humanness for even a few seconds of the other side, what they were feeling and needing. At the moment that starts to happen, miracles start to happen.